While getting a tour behind the scenes during the production of Project Hail Mary, Tested talked to production designer Charlie Wood as he toured us through the dazzling cockpit of the Hail Mary and showed us the unique problems his team had to solve to build this dynamic and fully immersive practical set. Charlie, I don't even know where to begin, but actually one of the weird first things I want to talk about is, like you, I have built many, many models like this over my time, and I love foam core models, but I'm really excited with how much 3D printing, just a very rudimentary level of 3D printing, has added to this process in terms of being able to see detail.
Yeah, which is everything, because I think particularly these are actually quite small sets.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to describe something, get the director excited by it, the more detail you can get into a small space, you'll probably be able to sell it easier, quite frankly, is it? And obviously, nowadays with 3D printing, the accuracy level, is fantastic, and you can produce models quite quickly.
Well, now, and speaking of accuracy, you're working on a near-future spaceship. Yeah. I'm assuming you used our beloved ISS as a primary reference source.
We did.
But I'm curious about jumping off from that. Like, we have these different country modules. Were you working with, like, looking at different countries' space programs and casting forward?
Correct. I mean, the mainstay of this was the ISS because it's the one sort of platform interior, sort of space architectural space you can study at length, And it sort of gave you sort of you could understand scale from it, sort of what a working environment probably should be. Yeah. You could understand airlocks, you could understand hatches, because the hatches were, one of our main sort of head-scratching things. And in addition to that, yes, we then started looking at things like, what was available to us, things like the Soyuz module, some of the Chinese modules. So I would say the mainstay of it was originally the ISS, but from that we then looked at other technologies, other international space engineering places, and then from that point there, then we started to break it out ourselves and take those little nuggets and then develop into what we wanted it to be.
And I know these are excellent for discussing the aesthetics of each set, but it looks to me like these are also intensely important for the problem solving of shooting on small sets. We were standing here yesterday, and it's a really cramped space.
Yeah, because they are. And no, it's an interesting thing because typically, certainly the films I've done in the past, generally you try and sort of make spaces. You may sort of want more scale, but from the get-go, Chris and Phil, we said that it's important that we stay within the space and we feel what space would be, which is essentially, to a greater degree, probably claustrophobic. And if the spaces become unrealistically large, they're going to feel less realistic.
And there's less stakes.
So, and all of that. But so what we have from the Hail Marys, we do have these tighter spaces, but then as soon as you step through the airlock, you're into the never-ending world of space itself. Yeah. So you go from this to everything. And actually, when I was watching, just little cuts of the film, I personally think it works beautifully.
Amazing.
Because, you hear the rumbling of the ship, you hear the noise of the air conditioning system, and it's tight, and you're right on surfaces, and he's hot and sweaty, and then suddenly that door opens, and it's never-ending, this never-ending wilderness of space. So I hope that will ultimately be something. We're very cognizant of it.
It also looks like you've been using these to solve architectural problems, like flying out walls for being able to get cameras and puppeteers and personnel in these tight spaces.
Yeah, that's been there's so, when you design a film, you have these problems. I have to say this film has the same issues, let's call it, the same things you have to think about. Plus, we had to deal with, as you say, shooting in very tight spaces, so how the camera has to work within those spaces, and working closely with Greg Fraser and Paul, and equally where they need to put the lenses.
Right.
So that we couldn't, a lot of this stuff you can't work out on the day. It's not a question of getting a chainsaw out on the day and just start cutting a bunch of holes. So everything, all of this was predetermined.
Right.
So for instance, I think this set here, which we're just going to pull apart, this set here, all of these
Yeah.
I don't know how many hundreds of panels we had. Individually, this was all built on a framework, and each individual monitor had to come out. But the other monitors had to stay lit, but it also had to stay structurally sound. So it was a really complex, layered discussion, which took many, many weeks of trying to figure out how this would all be.
I can only
imagine. And then we needed a lot of engineering support behind it, because the truth is I haven't done anything as complex as this, really, in my career. Then on top of that, we then had to deal with zero gravity. So we have basically gravity, zero gravity, and centrifugal gravity. So a lot of these sets have to play in multiple ways, and they always all have to make sense. And I think, in truth, we try to figure out as much as we could. But, you know, we had all sorts of strange problems, like, you know, a hatch, right? So say you have a hatch, you open a hatch, and a hatch hinge is hanging this way. But obviously, once we go like this, the forces on the hatch is completely different.
Right.
And we hadn't the hinges look great. We made them from aluminium. But actually, we should have made them from steel, because of the pinion that was in it. Obviously, just moved by as smallest percentages, and then the hatches wouldn't close. So, but normally you're not turning sets upside down. So if it's a Georgian bedroom, you know, the door just opens and closes as it should. So. Yes.
Is there a piece here that gave you the most that generated the most stomach acid?
The cockpit.
Yeah.
Because the cockpit, commonly known as the Coke can, was only, I think it's like 8 foot in diameter, right?
Oh my God, that's it.
So it's really tight. What they wanted was, the whole idea was, when Grace gets into it, it's completely overwhelmed by the amount of information that's in front of him, meaning
it's like all the world's information.
So he was basic, and we wanted to create a space not only which was a cockpit of a ship and had all the instrumentation that you'd ever need in it, but we just wanted to create this sort of beautiful wall, or this beautiful tube of light, which was called a tube of light, right? Wow. That had 7 or 8 different personalities to it within the lighting system. I mean. So, for instance, you know, when we first take off. When we're first in space, when we first find him, we came up with a sort of black and white lighting system for all of the graphics, which made it very monochromatic. Yeah. Then we mixed amber into that to give it, you know, the sort of the dawn of the film feel to it. And then we had these other moments where we use it just in a cyan mode, to give it another feeling, a more relaxed feeling. Then we go to green, which was more hostile. So.
Are you solving those in a virtual environment as well as?
No. Wow. The other thing, actually, that's interesting what you said. The other thing with all of these sets, I mean, we've got a fantastic visual effects supervisor. We have tried, and he will be touching many, many frames, I agree, but we've also tried to do a lot of this in camera. So, you know what I mean? We're not, we're not, this is not process work.
Crazy.
So not only, say, you've got this cockpit that has to function as it does, you've got all of the instrumentation which has to function, you've got the chairs which have to function, so they need to pitch, roll, yaw, and it's on a slewing system so that it can, when we first, and it's all going to fall to pieces, but when we first saw the set, if I can show you here, I'll show the camera, basically you climb up into the cockpit.
Oh, right, he climbs up, yeah.
So you actually climb up through this hatch here, the hatch opens, and the hatch is very beautiful, then you climb up into it. Yeah. And what happens is it then turns into centrifugal.
Right.
So all of the instrument panels slews round, and the chairs themselves slew down.
And that's all functional.
The chairs are functional. The panels are not. Right. But the set does.
But the set does.
And then the whole set had to be built onto a gimbal rig and a shudder rig. Then
you're doing real shuddering on the. Oh wow.
Yeah, with all of this electronics. We also have to build it for the puppeteers. And it's only 8 foot in diameter.
Right.
So, you know, the only other film I've ever spoken to about this was Das Boot. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Jürgen Prochnow, one of my favourite films.
That's the very first film I ever watched on cable television.
Well, there you go. Yeah. But he was sort of saying that how complex it was to film in such tight spaces, and you know that was that one. But I mean, equally. A lot of these sets, you know, the airlocks, they all had to work in different orientations. The medical bay, which is that great big set over there. I can show you this one too. This is sat at the beginning of the film, which will all fall apart again. It will fall apart, I'm sure. But essentially has this orientation to it.
Oh, wow. So this is when we first see it.
So I can show you in here. There we go. But when you first look into when he first wakes up, this is Grace. What happens is that lower bed comes out of a tube, but it is. In fact, I can probably take that off here. Ooh, there we go.
There we go.
Pull the pins out.
Gotcha.
That's why they're there. Basically, the lower bed in here.
Comes out of one of these.
In fact, let me just pull this off here. There we go. I can just pull that out. It's fine. So there we go.
Okay,
so
there.
This bed here is in. All of these beds are in this orientation.
Oh, look at that.
So when we first walk into the set, this is what we built, right?
Right.
We find him here. He wakes up. The other two astronauts are dead, but he can't see them because they're above him, yeah? And the scene plays out. Then he basically climbs up this ladder through the stack system and climbs all the way through the ship. So if you look at this image here, you see the bottom part of the image.
He
says
starts there at
Medical
the
Bay.
bottom.
And this is what we had to build.
Oh, wow.
And so basically that's his journey. But another part of the film, what happens is when the module, when the ship is flying, this part comes off, right? So basically when it's flying in the film, we're flying in a thing called acceleration gravity.
Right.
Basically it's moving.
Yeah.
In fact, it's actually slowing down. But we get to another point in the film where when the ship stops, obviously they would float, so they can't float. So basically the crew module comes out on a tether, and then the whole thing spins like this.
Right.
So this is your centrifugal motion, which means that this set, the orientation of this set then, now basically flips over 90 degrees like this, and all the beds rotate like this.
This sounds exhausting just to think about.
And then the robot, which tends to also has to work in in a similar way. So what is up is down. What is you've got this whole thing going on.
God.
So each set had to operate like that.
And this exists, right? We can visit the cockpit.
Yeah, we can go visit the cockpit.
Excellent. Let's do it.
Okay.
So these are this is a layout of the screens of the cockpit.
Yes. So what you're looking at here this was many months ago, and actually Phil and Chris sat here, and it was our first introduction to them in scale about the main part of the cockpit and how it all plays out in the scene. There are thousands and thousands of buttons and many hundreds of screens.
Crazy.
The cockpit, as I say, has many different purposes in the film. And every time you go on it, there's a lot of narrative that has to come out of the screens themselves. So we have a company who's been working obviously specifically on that. And basically we sat here and we just tried to say, here are the main screens. This is what they are essentially in scale. This was the space itself.
Right, yeah.
And basically to say, how do we play these scenes out? Where will Grace be? And where do the screens need to be to tell the story? Which was complicated because we haven't got two screens and two chairs.
Right.
And they wanted a space which was dynamic. They wanted him to be able to whiz up and down the cockpit. So it's all very interactive and as I say, interesting to look at in film. So this is what this was. So we had all the scene numbers worked out here. Here was sort of the main
I see.
part
They're
of the
blocking
screens.
scenes about where stuff is taking
Correct.
place.
And then they could basically come in and say, no, we don't want to do scene 6 here. We want to do scene 6 here. We want to do the jettison button over here because this is where we want him to be, because we want him to go from there to here. So there's a whole...
So the other thing I'm thinking of is you have the people that you've worked with for years that you trust, teams that you bring in of expertise. Did you have to find a new type of expertise to manage all these graphics and screens, and they're coming in and going out?
Yes,
That seems to be like a very bespoke...
On some films, you're quite right. On some films, you would say, well, as an art department, a certain person would look after screen graphics. We'd all get a bit mucked in and do that. What happened on this film is, like I have a person called Mirage, who's fantastic, and she, from the get-go, was just basically put onto screen graphics. And that's it. And so what she does is she sort of, where we started with all of that is basically, it's actually some of it's on this wall here.
Well, these are concept.
Well, this was all the reference. So this is all the sort of real-world reference from the shuttle to Soyuz to whatever. This is actually how the graphics look in the film. So we're trying to keep everything very grounded. That's what they wanted to do. It's a mad story, so let's keep this grounded. And these are all the color systems as well we started with. So that became a color system. this became a colour system. So we started here, and then we put this all into actual, how do I say, graphic artwork, which we then run through the monitors to show the directors to say, this is this scene from here to here.
Right. Oh my gosh. And everything needs a buy-off, of course.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's up this way?
Up there. So I'll take you. Do you want to go in?
Yeah,
let's go in.
Of course I do.
Watch your step. It's completely lethal.
Copy that. Oh, this is awesome.
So it's all a bit pulled apart. but
Sorry. An autonomic gasping.
Right. Yeah. So
Was there like when you first walked on this, you must have been like, oh man.
Yeah. No. It was great. So yeah, it was beautiful to see. So basically. What did we do? What can I tell you about this? Well, here's the main body of it. It's sort of slightly deconstructed right now.
Is it between, right, they're moving some parts out?
Moving parts, there's end walls which go on. We have a bunch of pressure windows which go in here. So basically what it is, these are all for the zero-G work. So we've got all the handles. When Grace is floating in here, that's one world of
Which means you have to fly out all sorts of different panels depending on where he's floating?
Yeah, so the whole set is built on an external exoskeleton framework system, which all pops apart. So there's a series of panels, one behind there, one behind there, one behind there, and one behind here.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that was that system. You're now looking at the centrifugal version of the set, because when it was in this thing called acceleration gravity, you see these panels here. Mm-hmm. When you see it in the film, you see that little rung down there, that little blue step right at the bottom. This is a ladder system, and you climbed up into here. So this, you would have fallen to your death, and at the bottom there, that hatch would have been below you.
Gotcha.
So when you first come into here, and he first climbs into here, you're sort of surrounded by this sort of, how do I say, this tunnel of light that's above him.
And are the screens
and then
here?
The screens would be there, correct? Because they're designed to move on this slew system. Do you see these things
I do.
here? And then the chairs themselves also run on the slew system. And then the chairs themselves can, because he has to work in these different gravities and he has to operate within the entirety of the space, basically what they can do is they can basically run backwards and forwards. It's all motorized. You're good. Yep. You can run backwards and forwards on it. They can basically rotate, and they can pitch and they can yaw.
I'm loving the Martin Baker ejection seat vibes I'm getting from the chair.
Well, that's exactly what we took it from. We just sort of messed around with it. And we did the same with the avionics. What the guys wanted to do is we didn't want to simplify it. In fact, what we wanted to do was sort of, particularly when you look at sort of, a lot of sort of fighter jet systems and all of that sort of airline glass, it says, we were heavily influenced by the sort of 747-400s and by the lighting systems from that particular aircraft, and exactly what you're doing here about just having a space in which we can do, like a little school kid and just having the best fun. So we want to make, and some of this stuff is all, and in fact, in the movie, he actually uses these very buttons to eject the tanks.
I specifically remember the actors from Alien talking about how much fun it was to step on that set because every button lit something up.
Yes.
And
same.
It's great for the actor to have practical things to touch and...
Well, Ryan really wanted to, all of the spaces he's within, because he's essentially by himself in space. The sets need to be able to perform with him,
give him something to bounce off of.
Give him things to do. So that's always been one of our sort of mantras on the film.
I'm also really, I happen to be weirdly familiar with airline windows because I know they're one of the most expensive parts of an actual airline. And you built these custom.
Yes.
But they look exactly like that heavily armored, multi-layered, expensive.
We actually did, and on the other sets is we've done that. We sort of we built sort of all the gasketing in between. They're proper sort of pressure windows. That's what we were trying to do, because I think when you build sets like this, it's important that when you see those sorts of details, you feel that they're actually doing something.
They're holding space out.
It's a really important moment. So we did spend actually a lot of time on that, and our hatches too. Shame there's actually
I saw a functioning hatch yesterday.
There's a beautiful hatch up there. from the ISS. So
you borrowed the hatch directly from the ISS?
Some of them. So, well, we played around with it. Essentially, they had square hatches. I think we've got like 5 different hatch types on the ship. I think it's 5 of them. Yeah. Actually, when this was all in and when it was all lit, it was very beautiful because we're trying to make the experience of being in the Hail Mary, rather like it in life, have many different experiences.
Right.
Meaning, when you first wake up in the medical bay, we built a lot of that out of fabric. So it's very padded. It's a very soft embryonic world, and it's very light in colour. It's these light, soft colours. By the time you get to the airlock, that is pure industry. That's lethal. You don't want to be in there. You press the wrong button, you're gone. This we wanted to give it. This is sort of a more sort of spiritual space in the sense that it has a dawn and it has a sunset in its lighting conditions. So when you're in here, it growls at you, it comforts you, it cools you, it heats you up, it terrorizes you. It does all of those things.
It's a full character of the
film.
So
so the Hail Mary in itself has to we're trying to make it function like that. It needs to be a character,
It sounds like, is this film unique for you in the incredibly high level of coordination between all departments that it takes?
Yeah,
because it seems to me like a crazy logistical nightmare, and I'm amazed that it's working.
Definitely. I think you learn that as you go as well. Certainly stepping into this film, I didn't know any of half of this, and I think it's a constant learning experience. Every day, something appears on your doorstep, good or bad or good, that you have to solve with a very amenable team of people. And I think that's what's got us to where we are, quite frankly. Because everyone's been brilliant. They have been brilliant. Truly, they have been. Yeah.
Well, as a production designer, you make different environments for different films. And I know as a maker, there might be something I'll think about making that I'm not super in love with, but in the course of making it, I fall in love with it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's some aspect of space hardware you didn't think that you would fall in love with, but that has really captured you on this film.
Really, the fabrics.
Really?
Yeah, I've really loved. We decided to listen. There's been so many beautiful science fiction films that have been made over the years.
Yeah.
And we purposely don't want to reference any of them because they're all great in their own right. But what we tried to do is we wanted to find a look ourselves, as we all do on all films. We wanted to make the film unapologetic. We wanted to say, it is this. And one of the ways I looked at it from the beginning was trying to see if you could use really good combinations of soft and hard surfaces, rather than everything being hard or soft. Let's sort of combine the two things. So working with fabrics and looking how, particularly insulation fabrics, and how fabrics are used in space has been really fantastic. And I've had this extraordinary drapes team on this film. And essentially, many of the sets have been entirely clad with different forms of, fabric design, but within the stitching, within the grommeting, within the foils that are behind it, and the shape language you can create from it, it can become very beautiful as well. So I think what I've learned from this is how what we've striven to do is also try and make it quite beautiful where necessary. The hatches too, I think, have been fantastic.
Every hatch I've seen has been I've wanted to open.
Look at a hatch and, how does a hatch work? What does it need to be? That's all been pretty fascinating.
Well, and most of the time in a big movie, all of these screens would be green.
Yeah.
There's so much energy. I feel like there's so much more energy in a space when it's practical.
Yeah, always. I agree. We've always, as our art department, we've always tried to produce the screen graphics, that we can produce. I also think, quite frankly, you end up getting a better result. I'll show you how.
Yeah.
It's like even say in what you're looking at here, we've designed the graphics. So you see that screen, there's more contrast in it. The blacks are blacker. This screen here, the black isn't as black, and that's purposeful. Because when you look at screen graphics, one thing that often I think we get wrong is we build too much symmetry. In fact, you build way too much symmetry into things. So what happens here is we can alter all of those things, which gives you the nuances to make something feel realistic.
Wow, because if there's real variegation.
If you looked at, that's a key word, because if you looked at a 747 cockpit, what you'd actually notice is everything isn't the same.
Right, they're all different vendors.
Chroma, colour, sheen, and all the rest of it. So For instance, we have full capacity when we're doing this to change the chroma, change the saturations, although these are all set at one level now, the buttons, when we actually film, we take a lot of light off a lot of them, so you break symmetry. And that is the art of illusion.
Yeah,
I think if you can break symmetry often.
Charlie, it's so beautiful. Dude, thank you so much for giving me a walk through
That's
this
all right.
world.
That's all right.
I can't wait to see it on screen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to the production of Project Hail Mary for making us feel so welcome on your beautiful sets. Project Hail Mary is out in theaters on March 20th. You can find out more with the links below.